Thank you for being our God and for making us your people. Be with us tonight. Help us to have wisdom as we engage with the things of this world that you've given us to steward. Help us to have wisdom and to love you more than anything else. And be with our conversation tonight. Keep me from saying stupid things. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so welcome. We'll kind of go through this together. Got two main topics I want to cover tonight, and then I got a bunch of stuff that's more like 401ks, IRAs, insurance stuff. We'll call that more topical for next time. And then I don't know if you want to give that to Rick coming in for me. So two main parts. One is I'm going to wax a little philosophical about what is money, what is it not, kind of how should you think about it in the grand scope of your life. And then the second thing that we're going to cover is how to use a financial calculator, which I started to learn in college, got pounded into me when I was studying for my certified financial planner designation, to the point where I wanted to burn it with fire. But it is a really, really handy tool to use because it allows you to quantify complex decisions down to simple numbers and do clean analysis that doesn't require, writing out 30 pages of equations. You can just go tap, 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 click, and you're like, oh, there's my answer. So as part of that, I think Matt sent out a text to the church group. Did everybody get the financial calculator downloaded off the App Store? It should look like that on the homepage. Raise your hand if you did not. Awesome. So just to be clarified, the hand raisings did not download it.
I put the
Okay.
Apple link, but I put the
Screenshot.
the screenshot of the other one. So if you're
Yep.
Android, you have to search for it yourself.
Yep. So if you go to the App Store and you search for financial calculators, you will get a nice little blue background with a white calculator and a couple little gold coins next to it. It's the Apple Store. You search for EZ financial calculators and it'll come up. But on the Android store, you just search for financial calculators. Just want to top the results. I think it's like 4.5 stars, something over 1 million downloads. And your homepage should look like something like that when you download it. There are 3 calculators in particular that we're going to go through. But before we do that, we will go through the first part of this. So, if you want to, you can download it while we get there. Get a pen out so I can keep.
Is there anybody who's not in Church of the Word Messenger group that needs the calculator on iPhone? You all have it? Because I can send a link to some of you. I probably have your phone number.
Okay. Golden Circle is, I have it in here, stolen, not borrowed, from Simon Sinek. This was, if you go to YouTube and you do a YouTube search for Simon Sinek TED Talk, Start With Why, you'll get a couple of videos that'll come up, and I think it's well worth a watch. He comes at it from more of a secular angle, but I think it really applies well to people's lives, and kind of his point of that, and he was applying it to the business realm, was most people, so if you think about the concentric rings there, you've got why in the middle, followed by how, followed by what on the outside. And his point was, in a corporate sense, most companies know what they do. His joke was that some of them know how they do it, and almost none of them know why they do it. And that companies like Apple that have seen tremendous amounts of success start with the why and go to the what. And so that makes a much cleaner pitch of, it's a value proposition. Apple stands for, being excellent. And so as part of that, you're willing to buy the what's from them, which is everything from iPods to phones to watches to cars, et cetera.
I beg your pardon. I think you have that on.
Do I?
Upside down.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Probably. Okay. Oh, all right, cool. I can hear myself a little better. So if we apply that to like the personal life thing, one of the things that I've seen with a lot of clients, I've been doing financial planning for individual clients now for about 10 years. people come in anywhere from ages of 30 plus. A lot of times you get people coming in who are in their 60s and they want to retire. And if you start to kind of prod into how they view life in general, if you want to stump somebody, average person on the streets, ask them, what's the purpose of your life? And they'll kind of do one of these. The average person starts with what? They start from the outside in, similar to Simon's point about most corporations. And you ask them, hey, what do you want out of life? And they'll say something like, well, I want to retire by 50, and I want to have maybe a boat, and I want to go to Florida, and maybe have a cabin in Denver. And then you say, well, how are you going to get there? Like, well, I'll save lots of money, of course. And you're like, well, why do you want that? And the answer is like, well, because I want it. Like, why are you asking me why I want it? And, I think it's engaging for Christians to think their lives through from the inside out. Start with why. Why do we do anything? And the answer there, we've got some scripture verses. Does anybody want to look up 1 Corinthians 10:31? Anybody want to take a guess as to what the why is?
For the glory of God.
Internet point to Rick. The why is to glorify God in all that we do. You got 1 Corinthians? You want to read?
I didn't look.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at somebody else. I know, I have it memorized.
Whatever you do all to the glory of God.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. And then the how. Anybody want to look up 1 John 2, 3 through 4?
I will. We know that we have come to know him if we keep his commands. Whoever says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth is not in that person.
The how is to live a life of faithful obedience. I am a big believer that faith has a lot less to do with intellectual assent of the facts and a lot more to do with covenantal loyalty. That's where you get the word. So if you look in the Greek, you'll see peitho is kind of the root, followed by pistis, pistos, pistue are the noun, adjective, verb forms. So when people say believe, that is the verb form. The adjective form is faithful. Faithful has to do with covenantal loyalty, which is where you kind of see. If it's not just believing that Christ came to die for your sins, it's a belief that leads to obedience. Even the demons know and shudder. Just believing that Christ rose from the cross is not enough. You actually have to hold yourself obedient to his commands. And then the what, somebody got John 15:8.
I do. This is my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples.
So the bearing of fruit there, to me, I see that as pointing towards wise stewardship. So why do we do anything that we do? To glorify God in all that we do. The how do we do that? To live a life of faithful obedience. The what is to invest in eternal things as wise stewards. Invest in eternal things as wise stewards. There are two kinds of eternal things. You'll see them there on the thing, on the sheet. Eternal treasures there's two things that survive the depths of time. One is the Word of God. The second is the souls of men. And we can put souls of men into four categories. You've got family, friends, neighbors, and self. Go that over again. Eternal treasures. There's two things that survive the depths of time, the Word of God and the souls of men. And out of the souls of men, you've got family, friends, neighbors, and self. If you tell me to anybody tells me to slow down, I will not be offended.
Go.
Okay. With into those eternal treasures, you invest your temporal treasures. There are four basic kinds. The first one is the basic unit of investment that everybody gets is time. The homeless guy under the street and Bill Gates, the billionaire, all has a certain amount of time. The analogy that I particularly like is that when you are born, you are given an hourglass, and the top of it is painted out black, so you can't see how much sand is in the top of it, how much time do you have left. All you can see is the sand running through the bottleneck, and you can see it accumulating up in the bottom. How much have you lived in the past? But at any point, the sand could stop running out, and that's it. Your time is gone. But when you're born, you get an hourglass full of time. And that is the one big thing that if you ask super wealthy people, what do they wish they could have more of? It's time. You can't buy more of it. I mean, you can go to the hospital, but at the end of the day, these things are preordained. So that's time. The next item is talents. Talents includes two different kinds: natural talents. So if you're really good at frisbee golf or sports, things like that, that's natural talents. And then spiritual gifts. I'll defer to Matt if you want to talk more spiritual gifts, but spiritual gifts are listed, and the idea is that when you are saved, you are given spiritual gifts from the Holy Spirit, and those are things like discernment and leadership and wisdom. Both can be honed and grown, so you can invest your time into your talents to basically grow those. But those are the other temporal treasures that you have, and the two of them combined come up with the third thing, which is your work. Work is the kinetic energy of what you do with your time and your talents. If you look into physics, the equation for work, and when it comes to a physics class, work equals force times distance. So if I apply a force on an object over a certain distance, that's work, and you can measure it in terms of energy. For my dad, the engineer, isn't rolling his eyes. That is the kinetic energy of what you do. When we think of work in your personal life, when you are giving of your talents, that is the force that you're applying over the distance of time. That's your work. That's the kinetic energy of what you do. So that's your work. The fourth thing is your treasure. Treasure is work in battery form. So if work is the kinetic energy of what you do, your treasure, and most people are going to think physical possessions, that is the battery form of your work. So the water behind the dam that you've stored up, that you can unleash into the kinetic form and get other people to do work for you. That's the when you think of money changing hands, when you go to pay for a dinner, what you are doing is you are trading labor for labor. You're giving them the battery form of your labor for their labor of serving you a meal. So when you give somebody money, you are giving them your time, your talents, and your work in battery form. That's what you're giving them. There are three kinds of treasure. There may be more. These are the three that I always have top of mind, which is your physical wealth. That's the first one. That's your money. The second is your physical health. So Evan Petzold isn't here, but I wish I had his body. He spends a lot of time investing in that body.
I just take his face.
But that is, and then the third thing, there are relationships. So when you're investing in something, there are those three areas of treasure are stores of wealth. Both your physical possessions is one. The second is your personal health. Don't eat bonbons. Don't go out to Pizza Hut. Actually make a healthy meal. And then the third thing is the relationships of the people around you that you're pouring into. All three of those, dropping to the next to last bullet point, all three of those things can be invested into the souls of men. So family, there's two kinds of family. You've got your blood family, your biological family. There are certain duties that you owe there, as well as your spiritual family, to which you also owe different kinds of duties, as well as your friends, people who are in your social circle that you like hanging out with, and your neighbors, which is everyone else. And I got scripture verses there, but we're at 7:22, so I will let you read those at your leisure. Ron Blue is a well-known person in the biblical stewardship realm. I think he's got a book, I forget the name of it, but he's got three questions that are worth remembering as you are considering your physical wealth. Who owns it? God. Not you, ultimately. It's God. In a civic sense, yes, you own it, you're a steward over it, but ultimately it belongs to God, and that's a good thing to remind ourselves of when we see our net worth growing and piling up over time. The next question is, how much is enough? So it is a responsible thing to save for your own future and for the inheritance of your children, and at a certain point, contentment has to kind of start to take over from ambition. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, as you are accumulating assets, how much of it is enough for the needs that you have, and then what starts to turn into excess? And then the third question is the next generation of stewards prepared and chosen? And the idea there is when you are, when I die, I've got 3 kids so far, if I leave $1 million to each kid because I did a great job saving and investing, what I am doing is I am passing over the stewardship of decades of my time, my talents, my work in battery form. I am taking off the mantle of steward as I go into glory and handing it off to the next generation. And the worst thing I could do is hand that mantle of steward over to somebody who's a knave and is going to take it down to Vegas and blow it. It behooves us, I believe, as faithful stewards to pass that mantle of steward on to the next generation that's going to steward it well as kind of our final act. So is the next generation of stewards chosen and prepared? My kids are young enough to not be here and listen, but kind of the rule of thumb that Sarah and I have talked about is, and we've got this written in our trust actually, if our kids aren't following the Lord by the time they're 30 and we pass away, their share of the inheritance goes to a nonprofit. That's kind of how we enforce that stewardship. Any questions on all this before we move to financial calculators?
Hey, I think remembering that first point, who owns our money, is, kind of stirs me up at least a little bit to think, how much more important is it for me to make sure that next generation is prepared? Because I'm not just, Lord willing, I hope to hand down money as well to my family, but to my children, but it's not my money I'm handing down, it's God's money. I'm thinking about this is God's thing that I'm about to hand over to somebody else. It kind of moves me to take this even more seriously. So I like the way you kind of walk through that.
Yeah. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions? That's either a really good sign or a really bad one. Not sure which.
I don't think many Christians even think about that. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think people just do what everybody else does. I die, I leave it. But I think it's a very important thing to get settled and think through.
I have a number.
What?
Preparing for the next generation.
Yeah, the next generation, inheritance. It's like so many other things. We just do what the culture does and what everybody does, and we don't think about it. It's very important to think through the stewardship element, that we are stewards of what actually belongs to God. Our children belong to God, we belong to God, our bodies belong to God. I just think it's important to think about that. I think it's a very good point.
I think that's where our talents come in here, to teach your children pretty much what you have in talent, because that's part of what you're giving them as their inheritance, so they can do what you were doing and continue on, because, that's how farms are kept running and families and like that for generations and generations. So you probably have a talent that your kids need to know, that needs to be passed on to you. That's part of the inheritance that you're trying to pass on.
I'll add, I didn't put it in here, but I'll just add since we're lingering on the subject. Men are made for worship, and I've heard it said, and I think it's accurate, you either worship the creator or the creation. Most people who are worshiping the creation are worshiping themselves at the end of the day, I'm convinced. And what's interesting about money is, and Jesus says that the love of money is the root of all evil. What's interesting about money is that it can be converted into various forms that feel like worship from others. So when you're handing money, you are engendering people to give you their time, their talents, their work, their love, or at least the act of love. And money gets you things like power, influence, but it engenders what feels like worship. to the human heart. And even though I think the people who are sending that your way aren't actually worshiping you, they're just pretending. They're actually still worshiping themselves. But it feels to you as the receiver, it feels kind of like worship. People are serving you, like we should all be serving God. And money is kind of a nice way to engender that from other people. And so when you hand a lump sum of that off to somebody who is worshiping themselves and likes feeling that, you are throwing fuel on a fire that is going to burn out really quickly. And this is one of the reasons why you see, lottery winners are oftentimes, it's one of the worst things that happens to them because they are worshiping themselves, not living for the Lord. You inject a huge amount of capital and the ability for them to engender the worship of others unto themselves, and they completely self-destruct. So it's not just a question of, is it wise stewardship to hand money off to a kid that's living like a knave? It's also the fact that you are helping them self-destruct further, and you are shielding them from the stinging nettles of God, like trying to convict them that they're not living for him. So to Matt's point, I have known a lot of Christian parents who sometimes go to church every Sunday, sometimes they're Christmas and Easter Christians, and they really struggle with the idea of not leaving their money behind to kids, and their kids are like not going to church, not reading the Bible, couldn't care two figs about God. And it's like, well, I think it behooves the Christian parent to raise their children as if they are going to hand that mantle of steward off, so that you don't end up with a 50-year-old who's, a 50-year-old child who's totally not living for the Lord, raising his kids not to live for the Lord, and now you're like, well, golly, maybe I don't leave my inheritance to my kids. Like, well, that sucks.
The sad part isn't that the kids don't get the inheritance. The sad part is that they can't use the inheritance. They don't appreciate the inheritance. Like the damage is already done. It's not that the poor kids don't get the inheritance. The poor kids don't have an inheritance already, so they can't use the money to actually glorify God.
Yeah.
The spiritual inheritance is not
There's a movie on TV, I don't remember, but a guy passed away and his grandson gets it. He has to go spend everything that he
Yeah.
I don't know what the name of it. He has to spend everything, but he ends up inheriting a whole bunch more, but he's just trying to teach him.
The gift.
Before he gives it to him, he's teaching him that's not about the money.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of that movie,
I
but
think it's the gift, isn't it?
it's the gift.
I think
that's
so.
The ultimate gift.
That's it.
That's a good one to sit down and watch.
Okay. We'll move on to financial calculators. I'm keeping my eye on the clock here. Who does not have it installed and ready? Raise your hands. Does your wife, does McKenna have it? All right, we can share.
So when you said financial calculators, I downloaded the easy financial calculator.
That's for on Apple. If you've got Android,
Identically titled one, which is a financial calculator. You're not saying that one is financial calculators is the app.
hold on. Yeah, hold on.
You wanna see my Apple and see if it's the same on the screen? That's all the apps within the app.
So it's FNC calculator?
That's the Apple,
That's the one you're looking for.
Yeah, that's the one I got.
Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. In that app, we'll go ahead and open that up. There are a bunch of tools, and there's a little button at the bottom that says more calculators, which you can pick on, and just it scrolls and scrolls. There's also a website. It should be listed at the top of the app, fncalculator.com. That website does work. But what should be at the top left is TVM calculator. And that's where we're going to go first. We're going to learn 3 of these. This is the first one, and you should get something like that. So this gives us our entry-level superpower into seeing into the future. And essentially what we're doing here is you've got 5 fields. You've got to fill in 4 to get an answer on the 5th. So if you know the answer to 4 of these, you can find out the 5th thing. First one there is present value. And you've got some of this here on the sheet in front of you. Present value is, so if you're sitting in year 1 today, this moment that you're sitting in, and you're trying to look into the future, and you're saying all right, I've got all this money that's going to be flowing. What's it all worth today? Present value. As opposed to 2 lines down, future value, which would be, all right, if I take money today and I invest it over 20 years, in 20 years, what's it going to be worth? That's your future value. Payments are money that's coming in and out, either going to the investment or coming back to you in the meantime. And that's typically measured in years, or it can be measured in months. So if you say, hey, I want to save $5,000 a year, you would put $5,000 into payments. And you may or may not put anything in present value if you have a $0 balance to start. So if you've got $0 to start with, you would put 0 in present value. You got nothing right now, but you're like, hey, I'm going to save $5,000 a year for the next 20 years. You would put $5,000 in payments. You're trying to.
Is it always per year? Can you change the PMT?
You can, and we'll get there.
Okay.
The annual rate would be like, all right, you're going to save $5,000 a year. You're going to invest it, hopefully. And when you invest it, you're going to invest it at a certain percentage rate. So if it's like 7% growth rate, you would put in 7 in annual rate percent. And then periods is the number of time sequences that we're talking. So if we're talking years, and you're like, hey, I want to know in 20 years, you would put 20 in periods. So we'll do this real quick. Under present value, hit 0. Payments, 5,000. Future value, we don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out. Put 7 in the annual rate. Periods, put 20. You've got a couple of little options below this. Compounding should be set to annually. There's a little drop-down menu there. We're going to set that to annually for now. Mode should say end, and then you can just leave it at 2 decimal points. And then what you do is you're going to tap on that FV green button, and you should get $204,977.46 as your answer.
Could you tell us what those fields are again?
Yep. So 0 in your present value, you got no money to start with. You're going to start saving $5,000 a year, so $5,000 goes into your payment. That's every year throughout the whole time series. 7 is your annual rate. 20 is your periods, because we're doing this for 20 years. And then you're going to tap on FV, and you should get just shy of $205,000.
Why does it show a negative?
Great question. So here's the deal with this. Money that you are sending out is a negative number. Money that's coming in is a positive number, debits and credits. So when I say 5,000, actually, that should be negative 5,000. So on the far right side, you'll see almost down in the corner, there's a period and a negative sign. If you hit it once, you'll put a period in. Hit it again, it'll switch to a negative. Double tap it, basically. Yep, so on the far right side, there will be a period and a negative sign. If you double tap it, you'll get the negative to input. So in front of the 5,000, put the cursor in front of the 5,000, double tap that, and make it negative 5,000. And then recompute FV, and you should get positive 205,000.
So you said $5,000 is your payment. Your APR is 7%.
Yep.
20 periods.
Yep.
I'm getting $105,000.
That's is your compounding. Your compounding should be set to annually on the drop down there.
I just lost it. I forgot what that number was. What was supposed to be there?
Well, put a negative in front of that 5,000.
Compounding should be set to annually for everybody. Is anybody else not getting 205,000?
There you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's fine. All right. So, as part of that, so there's that. Let's go to, if you flip down a couple of pages, you should get to our questions. And we've got some problems to work through together, which is going to be super fun.
Wait a minute, is there a number of which page?
I don't have page numbers, but
Okay.
it goes to questions. Question number 1.
Okay.
Pastor Matt.
All right, Pastor Matt wants to take his family on a ski trip to Colorado in 10 years from now. He plans on needing $50,000 to pay for the hotel rooms, lift tickets, and hot chocolate for Anka at that time. The original version of this was he wanted to go to Vegas and drop $50,000 on slot machines until I realized it was going to be recorded, and I realized I'm 36 years old and I should cut it off. Assuming a 6% rate of return, how much per year will he need to invest? So the question there, we're solving for payment. How much does he need to actually put into his investment? $50,000, correct, should be your future value. That's money that he's going to have coming into him, so that's a positive value.
Annual rate still 7?
Annual rate is 6%. He's got to do it in 10 years, so that's your periods. And you should be able to hit payment. Who's got an answer for me?
$4,618.77.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's what I got too. I got the 3,793. You got an Android.
It's the same thing.
You didn't have 3,000, did you? You have 4,618. I've got. Oh,
Wait a minute, what I got wrong here?
well, maybe I got it wrong.
You got, what'd you get? Sorry.
We have two different
Yep,
numbers.
that's correct.
We have two different numbers.
Okay, what's your number?
Mine is 4,618 and
So-
77 cents. Present value is 0.
You're compounding quarterly.
Yep. Yeah, I'll say it again. On the compounding, it should say annually. We're doing annual computations. We're going to do annually.
Mode is N.
So that means I need to save $3,793
And 40 cents per year
per year.
to get that $50,000 trip in 10 years.
Got it.
Okay? Now, is everybody...
Dollars in current. The thing that makes this hard is it's $50,000 in current dollars.
No. Well,
Value. So in other words, that 50,
no. You're...
what that's really going to be worth because of inflation.
Yeah, slow way down. I'm going to get there. Definitely going to get there. We're keeping it, we're using the KISS method. He will need 50,000. He's accounted for inflation. Did anybody get an answer besides 37.93 and 40 cents? Cool. All right. Here's another little trick with this, and this is where one of these options here, you'll see under mode, there's end and beginning. End says, hey, when there's payments coming in or going out, do those happen at the beginning of the series or at the end of the series? We're currently set to end, which means Matt is going to save $37.93.40 at the end of every year. December 31st rolls around, he puts that money in there. But if you said, well, how much would I have to save if I saved it at the beginning of each year? Like, well, tap the beginning, re-hit payment. Now you only need to save $3,578 because you're saving it at the beginning of the year. Correct. That 3578 computes at the starting in the beginning of the year. It gets an extra year of growth, which means you don't have to save as much. Anybody get anything besides 3578? Okay. All right. So you know how that works. We'll go back to the end function. So you can click back to end. We'll set that as the default so everybody's getting the same answers. We'll go to question number 2. If Matt has $5,000 to initially set aside towards this trip, what does that lower his monthly savings payments to?
I got 4,219.56.
Guys are all over the map.
Oh, I'm in the beginning. I didn't put it at the end of the year.
Yeah, set it to end and make sure you're still set on annually for compounding.
4,472.
So,
That's what I got.
what you may have forgotten to do was put a negative number in front of 5,000 for your present value. You're starting with 5,000. He's sending 5,000 out to this investment, and he's sending an additional negative 3,000. Wow, sorry, not payments. Sorry, because we're trying to compute for payments, so ignore the payments. But you're starting with negative 5,000. You're ending with positive 50,000. 6% annual rate, 10 periods, compounding annually. Solve for payments, you should get negative 3114. Okay, it's about almost $700 a month less just by starting with that $5,000 initial.
So As a Christian, you'd always want to start at the beginning by faith, right?
I didn't put like taking a seed offering from the congregation to set aside.
This is very handy. So I, like some uses, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but like somebody wants to save for a house.
Yeah.
Or save to start a business. They're like, oh, I dream of a certain business. And you're like, I know I'm gonna need approximately $50,000. You could play with the numbers on this and figure, well, if I can get 6%, how long is it gonna take me? You can say, if I do it at the beginning of the year, I mean, it's a very useful tool for a variety of things.
Yeah. So the difference between answer 1 and 2, I don't know if you guys are writing your answers down, but you'll notice answer 1, no money to start. He's got to save almost $3,800 a year. But if you throw in $5,000 in the initial kitty, now you only have to save $3,100 a year. Ready for question 3? Say yes. Okay, question number 3. If Pastor Matt sets aside $10,000 in initial funding and he saves $3,500 a year, how much sooner can he take his family on a trip? So here you're going to put in negative 10,000 into the present value, negative 3,500 into the, hold on, Josh Key is texting me here, I'm going to shut that up. Negative 3,500 into the payment, $50,000 is your future, 6% is your annual rate, solve for period.
7.91 years.
Yep. Of course, the question is how much sooner can he he got it.
You have to put a negative 35.
Yeah, the other problem, I pushed the wrong button here.
2.19.
So now I'm what?
Nope.
I'm calculating periods? 7.91.
Huh? Well, 7.91 is not the answer because the answer is how much sooner. How much sooner can he take the family on the trip?
So,
Well, he doesn't know how big his family is going to be.
2.09
Years, correct. 2.09 years sooner.
I'm sorry, what I'm lost in is when and where to put negative numbers. The negative,
Yep.
everything else makes sense.
Yeah, so negative numbers are you sending money out into an investment. Money coming into you is positive.
So if I start with $10,000,
You are sending,
negative attribute,
think of, so when you think of this, think of if you take a loan, money comes to you from the bank. You get a check from the bank. It's like, ooh, I got money in the bank. Money came to you. So loans are positive numbers to you. Money in the bank is a positive number to you. But if you're sending money off to investments, think of the investment account as like money that I'm not touching. It's negative because it's flowing away from me. So if you're putting $10,000 into something and you're sending $3,500 a year after it, those are negative numbers. The $50,000 will be positive. If you put negative numbers for all 3 of those fields, the financial calculator will freak out, and it's like, I have no idea what you're trying to do.
I got 7 years, 332 days.
Down to the minute? No, just kidding. And then what's interesting there, too, is if you click on beginning and recalculate, you get 7.6 years, which means he can take the trip 2.4 years sooner instead of 2.09.
which is 6 months before 6 months is going to be before he dies.
Okay, are we all feeling happy so far? Say no if not. You good? It's all right. We're going to get there.
So it's 2,
There's only 30 more questions to go.
9, whatever. It would be more like 2 years would be like 600 and
All right. I'm going to move on to question number 4 unless somebody throws something at me. All right. Question number 4. Going back to question number 1 and the original terms and conditions of this saving strip, how much per month will he need to save if saving monthly? Here's where it gets a little interesting because we've been doing this annually, which is very easy to do. The problem is you can't take this. Let's go back to this. We'll say go back to the original question number 1. We got $0 to start, so 0 is our present value. We're trying to figure out our payments. So $50,000 is future value. Annual rate is 6%. Periods is 10.
We're still calculating
And you're going to,
beginning or end?
say end. Yeah, let's just say end.
10 months instead of 10 years?
10, yeah, so it's 10 year. Yeah, so if you set it to 10, we're going to just go back to the original. To question number 1.
Period's gonna be years?
Instead of annually, you're gonna.
So annually, you should, if you hit payment, we should get back to that negative $37.93 and 40 cents.
Yep.
Yes? The problem is if you divide that by 12 and say, well, I'll just save 1/12 of that throughout the year, that's not the correct answer because 1/12 of that payment is going in January and February and March, and those individual dollars get to grow compounding through the year. So if we're going to be precise, which financial people love to be precise, there's a way to solve for this, which is we're going to set the compounding term instead of annually. We're going to set that to monthly on that drop-down menu. But we can't quite just go from there because periods still shows 10, and when you've told the calculator to run it monthly, it assumes you're talking about 10 months. So instead of 10 months, we got to multiply that number by 12. I picked 10 years for a reason, so you can put in 120. 120 months is 10 years. Now hit payment. 305.10. That's how much you need to save per month into something getting 6% per year.
So that accounts for the compound interest rate.
Right, the compounding, yeah, every time you put $305.10 in, it's going to start compounding. You're putting it in at the end of that month, or if you want to say, well, what if I put it at the beginning of the month? If you put it at the beginning of the month, you need to save $303.58.
Still 6%? No,
Yep,
it's an annual
6%.
rate. Yep.
6% annual rate. The calculator will divide it. Yeah. Either way, you can play around it and see, but I have it set by default to end. If you want to run the beginning, I've got those answers saved here as well.
$2 a month.
So what did we come out with that number? What should it read?
305,
305. Okay, wait.
Yep.
Oh, maybe I didn't do the payment button? No, I did
So if you're computing,
This should be 0.
yep, 0 to start, 50,000 future value.
There you go. 305.10.
Okay. So that's that. All right. Last part of this calculator is the amortization function, which you will notice right down here at the bottom. So let's go to question number 5. Assuming the inputs from question number 4, which is what we just did, 305. Or I'm going to go by end. So your inputs, remember here, present value is 0. We're trying to get $50,000 in 10 years, so that should be 50,000. Annual rate is 6%. Periods, because we're looking at it monthly. That's 120 months over 10 years. You compute for payments, should be negative 305.10. Does everybody have that? Cool. Here's the question. In 3 years, how do we know if we're on track or not? What you do is you hit this amortization button, and it'll take you to a spreadsheet. This will tell you your beginning balance, the money that you put in, and the ending balance at every month throughout those 10 years. So by month 12, that would be year 1, you have put in the present value's worth of $3,400, and you should have $3,763. So what is year 3? At the end of year 3, anybody got that?
Yeah. $12,001.45.
Yep.
Year 3.
36.
Year 3 is month 36.
Oh, right. That's right. Got it. Okay. Yep, good.
12 times 3 is,
I'm
okay.
sorry. I was thinking about
All right.
the last thing I was looking at. Okay.
So this is a way to keep yourself accountable, is if you start saving for this, return rates do not happen nice and steady. As much as I wish I could give somebody in my line of work, an easy, steady Eddie 6% return, you can get close sometimes, but unless you're in like a CD or some sort of a contract where you're locking in a guaranteed percent rate, question is, you're 3 years into it. Well, how much money do you have? Because maybe you can adjust. Maybe you got to start saving more because you don't have $12,001.45. You've got 11 grand saved. Like, all right, well, you got to kick the savings up a notch, or hope that your rate of return improves from here. So that's your amortization table.
Okay, so
Yeah.
can you try to explain present value versus future value on the table?
Yeah. So the present value is that first number. What that's saying is the money that you've put in $305.10 for 36 months now. You've saved a bunch of money into this account. It would be the balance of that account is $12,001.45. That's nominal dollars sitting in the account. In year 3, you will have $12,001. However, the question is like, well, what's that $12,000 worth in today's money? Because that's after like inflation and stuff happens. Well, so it's going to discount that at the rate of 6%, and it's basically telling you, hey, at a 6%, 6% rate of discounting, that $12,000 in today's money is only really worth $11,638.
How did you come up with that?
Wait, I'm sorry, can you explain the difference between PV and FV?
Yeah, so PV is present value, FV is future value. Future value is how many dollars will you have nominally in that account at that time, at the 36-month mark. The PV is just a handy tool of like, what's that money worth in today's money? That's the 11,600. Right.
And after every line, the future value becomes the next month's present value.
Yes. Oh.
Interest rate are they using for that though?
I'm sorry. Is that, yeah, it does.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I might be wrong about that 6%. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm misreading that. 305.
So if I'm looking at this right, if I put $500 in a month, 6% for 3 years, 36 every month for 3 years, I'm not wrong, that's $20,000.
I'm sorry. That is the nominal value minus the investment of that, minus the. I'm sorry. So I did say that wrong. Sorry. It's not discounted for inflation. What that is the previous month's balance before it in. So, yep. So the previous month in month 35, you had $11,638.15. You put in an additional $305.10, and the whole balance grows at 1/12 of 6%. That's where you get that before the growth kicks in, kind of a number.
Beginning of month, what it'll be, your payment plus the interest, end of the month, what it'll be.
In month 36, your $11,638.15 makes 1/12 of 6%, makes 0.5%, and you put in an additional 305, which gets you to a balance of 12,001. Yeah, I apologize. That's me being dumb. All right. Questions, thoughts?
Yeah, so, possibly stealing, not having read ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of these calculations assume make assumptions that are crucial assumptions. All of them are making crucial assumptions, which you have no idea, really. If the Chinese blow us all up tomorrow like we deserve, then what does all this mean anyway? So, essentially, the only way that I got to be, retired without having a pension, aside from Social Security, was that I saved money like crazy when our family was young, and I kept saving money where I possibly could.
Yeah.
And so, if you save money like crazy, and you convince yourself, I'm actually saving as much money as I really can, and I'm taking a hit in my present, I don't go to Starbucks kind of stuff. I'm saving every dime I possibly can, because I don't know how these assumptions are going to play out in real life. So that's really kind of the true deep magic is you take the compounding and you go, that's great, but all of this, for example, this 6% interest assumes that the rate of inflation kind of is 0.
We're going to get
You're
there.
getting
Yeah.
6% over the rate of inflation. Good luck with that.
And also, if you don't have an emergency come up, now you gotta tap into it.
Yeah, so if you saw the movie with Up,
they were saving for their big trip and they kept having to break the piggy bank
All right.
as much as you possibly can.
I'm going to go to question number 6. This is where we're gonna start to get a little more complex, a little bit more real worldy in questions 6 and 7. Assume for a moment, some of you are going to have a hard time remembering being like this. Assume you are 25 years old, earning $60,000 a year. Woohoo! You want to start saving $6,000 annually at the beginning of every year from now until you retire at age 65. Assuming you get a 7% rate of return on your investments, how much will you have by age 65? And go. First one to get an answer.
No, quit it.
Sorry.
Is it 1,281,067?
Yep, that is correct.
What's the rate?
Wow, who said that?
McKenna. She's our future
You don't
treasurer
need a
when
calculator,
Rebecca.
Joel.
She did that in her head. She doesn't even have a calculator.
Wait a minute. Was that at the end or beginning? Beginning of everything.
Yep, beginning.
Beginning?
Wait a minute.
It's all in the details. You want to start saving $6,000 annually at the beginning of every year.
Say 1,281,000.
Yes, that is correct.
Future value. Oh, wait. Oh, I did. Present value.
So is it, what did you do, 1,281,657?
Yep, that is correct.
1,371,504. 17.
Oh, was it 1,197,810?
What was that? 1 million.
1,197,810.
You're saving at the end. You got to save at the beginning. The bottom two
Okay.
little selector buttons. You're saving at the beginning of every year.
1,281,000.
Yep. For those who are missing it, the answer. So
5,746.
0 is your present value. You're going to save $6,000 a year. That's negative 6,000. We don't know what the future value is, so we skip that. Put in 7% as your annual rate. You're doing it for 40 years because you're 25. You want to do it for 40 years until you're 65. We're compounding annually because we're saving annually. The question is annually. We're going to save it at the beginning of every year. Compute FV 1.218. Wow. $1,281,657.42 is how much you will have nominally in the bank. To my dad's point is question number 7.
But wait, I just
Yep.
calculated. If I said I'm going to wait 10 years and I put $10,000 in a year,
Yep.
at the end of that, I only have a little over $1 million.
So if you wait 10 years, then you're going to put 30 in the periods. You're saving $10,000.
Yeah. So
Hit-
what
yeah,
it tells me is
1 million.
better to start early than waiting, even
Yeah.
though you can put more in later.
Yeah, the earlier you start, the better off you are.
So is it, 500,092,959.22 cents?
What was? I didn't hear what you were. Sorry, say that again.
7, for answer number 7, 592,959.
We haven't got to 7.
And 22 cents. That is almost correct. Yes, nominally. So there's 2 ways. So let's move on to question 7. For question number 6, the answer that we just got of $1.281 million, what is that worth in today's dollars, assuming 3% inflation? There's 2 ways to calculate net of inflation, an easy way and a technically correct way. The easy way is to subtract 3% inflation from the 7% growth rate and be like, well, I'm going to get 7, but 3% is going to be lost to inflation, so I'm going to keep 4. So you put, negative 6,000. I'm going to take it back here. Put 4 in. 40 is our time period. 500, and then compute for future value. Okay, well, you're going to technically have nominally 1.281 million, but in today's money, that's going to spend as if you only have 600,000, 592. The technically correct way to calculate this, and I've got this in the notes, if we go back to page 2. Nope,
We have a
hold on,
glossary in
where's
there with
this?
all these terms?
Where am I?
President, yeah, you do, you got definitions.
Yeah, so financial calculator basics, this is point 2. Go down to sub point 1, sub point 6, the notes. Sub point D, to adjust a future value for inflation. Simple approach is to subtract the inflation rate from the nominal annual rate. The technically correct way is to input the real rate. The real rate is calculated by 1 plus the nominal rate divided by 1 plus the inflation rate minus 1. So 1.07 divided by 1.03 minus the 1 gets you 0.0388. If you put 3.88 into this annual rate and recompute, it's technically $575,000.
Where did you get that? 'Cause I totally lost.
Yeah. So if you got a 7, so if the description here is on calculator basics down here, point D, there's a little paragraph on point D that tells you how the math is being done. So if we've got a 7% inflation rate, or 7% growth rate, 3% inflation, 1.07 divide by 1.03, subtract the 1, that is your remaining in 100th decimal place. That is your technically correct net of inflation. That's your real rate. So 3.88 for this case, which means you'll have 575,000. In today's is dollars. All of which to say there, the answer that Josiah spit out of 592 is really close to 575. It's not like exactly there, but it's pretty close. So if you don't want to really like screw around and get like an exact number, because you're like, well, it's close enough, because I'm not really guaranteed you get a nice, even, steady 7% the whole time anyway. Do what I do and just do the subtraction, calculate it. It's going to be pretty close.
By the way, the rate of inflation is a lie.
Yes. We all know.
The official government numbers and the rate of inflation is a true lie. The official government numbers on GDP for the United States of America is a true lie.
Okay. Point being, you can assume whatever inflation rate you want to. 3% is, if you look up the official government statistics, it's 3% going back to like 1980. That's been the average. The last time it spiked really high, go talk to somebody who was around in the 70s when inflation was like 8 or 9%. Since then, what the government has done to mess with the CPI number, Consumer Pricing Index, is one of the big things that they do is they allow substitute goods. So maybe you don't need to buy whole milk this month. Maybe you buy skim milk. And maybe you don't buy the Prairie Farm skim milk. Maybe you buy the Flavorite, version. And so the allowing substitutions into the basket of goods allows the government to understate the inflation rate that most people are feeling. So if you want to assume that the next 40 years is indicative of the last 40 years, you can use 3% and just understand that 3% is fine if you assume that things continue on as they have, and you might suffer a slight drop in quality of living to get to that 3%. Otherwise, you can use 4% and really depress yourself with how little money you'll actually have in real dollars 40 years into the future after savings. But either way, I told Matt I wouldn't pick on Dave Ramsey unless I was provoked. I've provoked myself. One of my problems with, I've got numbers, but I'll pick on one. One of my problems with Dave Ramsey is that he tells people to assume a 12% rate of return on the S&P 500, and he's got a number of dates picked out that I think he's sort of cherry-picked that show the S&P 500 performing 12% over 30-year time spans. The problem number one with that is, there are windows of time where you get 12%, but there's a lot more windows of time where you get 10%. Also, we've had a tremendous bull market run over the last number of years. And also, oh, by the way, that was when the baby boomers were working their tails off, driving the stock market to newer and newer heights. And also, that was when globalism was in its heights of strength. And also, it totally ignores inflation. So yeah, instead of 12%, the long-term historic average, I'm going to argue, was actually 10. And if you want to be conservative with playing around with your retirement, I tend to show clients getting like an 8% return, subtract 3% inflation. Now you're getting a 5% real nominal return. So on this example that we've got, if we say for 40 years and we're going to save $6,000 a year, put in 12%. So $6,000 negative number is your payments, start with 0. Period 40, future value, you should get $5.1 million. I think that's misleading because that tells people like, wow, $500 a month, I can save $500 a month and I'll be worth $5 million. I'll be way wealthier than my mom and dad ever were. What were they doing wrong? It's like, okay, well, instead of 12%, let's view that in terms of, give yourself an 8% return. Let's be a little more conservative about things moving forward. Let's subtract 3% inflation. We won't do the equation. Put in 5. Well, now you got $761,000, which is probably a lot closer to the money that your mom and dad actually have. Hopefully, if you get a nice inheritance. Anyway, point being, $5 million just fell to $750,000 million because we got a little bit more conservative with that assumed growth rate.
I'd like to say one thing. This is why have been a fan, and oh boy, I'm going to get John Gilman on me here. But one thing I like about real estate is you're paying it off with inflated bills. If you have something that's producing income, the downside of that is it takes work to maintain rental property, and not everybody's cut out for that. I mean, like it needs maintenance, you got to pour into it, you got to deal with tenants, etc. But inflation works for you is only the point. If you're saving cash, which we should all do, inflation is working against you. When you're a debtor, it's actually working for you, which is not a biblical system, but it's a system we have. You know, where in the Bible they had a gold-based currency and everybody had allotment of land, and you're not charging interest on things, but that's not the world we live in. I'll just say one positive thing about getting a house note is you're paying it off with bills that are worth less than the agreement you started with. So it works for you a little bit. Yeah, Paul?
Problem is also if you have property and you're trying to be the one that takes care of it, there's gonna be things that you can't take care of. Now you're putting money out for someone else to fix your problem.
That's true. And not everybody's cut out for that.
And if you're not cut out for doing that, then don't do it.
I agree.
All right, I'm gonna
What you're really saying is that, you're gonna,
Be a handyman that knows what they're doing. Or
even if you're a handyman who knows what he's doing, which the men here are, by and large, and I'm glad of it. But there's still gonna be some expenses you're gonna face that these financial
These are-
are not gonna accommodate.
yeah, all great for Sunday morning discussion. Let's move on.
Sorry.
That's fine. I'm just watching the clock here, and we're on question 8. As part of this, on the top screen, top left, you're on the TVM calculator. Hit the back button. We're going to move on to the loan calculator, since we're talking about real estate. The loan calculator, it will say loan calculator. It will have a nice, happy little yellow house with 2 green blocks inside of it. We're going to tap on that. And you should get something that looks something like that coming up. Okay? There's an advanced version and a simple version. If you click on advanced, you can get fields to put in property tax, insurance, HOA fees, PMI, etc. We're going to not mess with that for the moment. We're going to use the KISS method, keeping it simple. Go back to basic. So here's our calculator. You're going to put in the loan amount, the interest rate, and the number of years, and then hit calculate. The problem number 8 here, if you, age 25, good looking too, take out a loan for $250,000 at 6% interest rate for 30 years, what will be your monthly principal and interest payments?
Is that a positive number or negative?
So you can calculate this with the TVM calculator. The loan calculator is essentially a TVM calculator that is simplifying it down for you so it's easy. You don't have to like set it to monthly and what's my monthly payment and interest. Just it's streamlining it for basically a mortgage or car loan or anything like that. So for question 8, does anybody have, once you enter in those 3 inputs?
14.98 cents.
Yes, perfect. And a couple of lines, yeah, anybody not get 1498? When you hit, so $250,000 should be your loan amount, 6% should be your interest rate. Loan term should be 30 years. Hit calculate. You should get a few lines of red text below. Monthly payments $1498.88. That is your principal and interest. Anybody get anything else?
No, I'm sorry, I can get 30 years.
You got it, right?
I put that 120 in that.
Well, don't put that in.
Oh, I thought you said that for 10 years.
No, that's the end question. Yeah, don't read too far. This the question is, what will be your monthly principal and interest payment?
Oh,
That first one down says monthly payment $1498.88. Okay? How much total interest will you pay? Total payment, total interest $289,596.80. Huh? Yeah, so you're paying $250, but right. So $250 plus $289 gets you to that $539 total payment. Yeah. You're paying total off of $250,000 purchase. You're paying a total amount of money of $539,000. $289,000 of that is just pure interest costs. Okay. The last line, the next to last line down there, annual payment, $17,986.56. If you're thinking of making a purchase, this number is worth paying attention to because, as Stephen Benner and I have talked about a number of times, a very adulting concept is having an emergency fund. If you are having an emergency fund, one of the things you're thinking through is, hey, maybe I ought to have like 3 to 6 months or maybe more living expenses set aside in case I get laid up in the hospital and I can't work. So if you're taking on a debt and you are committing yourself to making monthly payments, that annual payment amount is almost $18,000. If you want to have 6 months of living expenses locked up, that means, to be fairly comfortable, if you weren't paying monthly housing costs and now you are, figure you should have $9,000 sitting in the bank at all times to pick up 6 months of the slack in case something happens to you. So that's kind of where that annual payment number is cogent, or multiply the monthly number by 3 if you want to do that. Okay? Last part of this, there's an amortization function. Woohoo! At the end, this is the last question here. At the end of year 10, what will be your loan balance?
247, 454.
I have 209.
Put 129.
Yep. Should be 209. 209, 213. Should be at the
Where do I see that? Extra? Oh, this.
on the amortization table. We're at the end of year 10, which is month 120.
I'm sorry, what am I solving for? Going to the-
Oh, 209.
My loan
So,
balance.
here, when you,
Oh, that's what I meant. Oh,
120.
okay, there we go.
You're at
229, 428 balance.
Okay?
I have 209.
209.
I must have done something wrong there. So I put 120.
Oh, yes,
Amortization.
Well, 120 is not an input, it's an out. You're just going to line 120 on the amortization table.
Right. I
Yep,
can do
all right.
that. 209,000.
Cool. All right. Question number 9. I'll move on unless I hear somebody throwing something at me. Let's say you would apply $300 per month additional payment to principal. How much in interest will this save you, and how much earlier will you pay your mortgage off? What's cool is you get a nice handy dandy little field here. You put in 300, hit recalculate, and it will tell you the answer. Anybody got it?
Save 111,000.
Yep. Yep. 121 months off. you're going to save $111,461.63 by applying $300 additional payment to principal.
And is that when you're actually looking at this in a real world example, like if I throw an additional 300, that's going towards my principal,
Yep.
not interest.
And that is, I believe, what this is calculating.
You have to specify, when you make your payment, you specify you want that to go towards your
Principal.
because if you don't, they put it in an escrow amount, it just sits there until it accumulates a payment.
I did.
Tell them you want to add it directly to your principal.
I did run this on another calculator. I was getting the exact same answer. My belief is that this is applying it to principal. Yeah.
So essentially, that's pure money. If you look at it, it's not pure money, it's diluted money when you're talking about the interest rate.
Yeah. So
When you're applying directly to principal, that's pure money. That's the most, yeah, it's pure.
But if you look at your payment slip on your house payment and all that, you put in your amount for your
So
paying, and then there's a spot,
so
add this to my principal.
yeah. So the answer is it does. So subtract the $300 per month off, zero that out, hit calculate. Monthly payment should just show $14.98. Hit amortization. Month one, you're putting in $14.98. $1,250 of that is going to interest. These loans in houses, they front load the interest. Only $248 is going to your principal. Now, if you go back and you apply $300 to additional payment, hit calculate, hit amortization. Now, instead of $248 going to principal, it's $548 going to principal. So, to my dad's point, that $300 additional is pure money going right to the underlying problem of the loan balance that's creating that interest. And that is how you get savings of $111,000. All right, are we good on question number 9? Great. Now, one of the key things, oh, good to see you guys, no worries. All right, one of the key things here, we're paying it off early by 121 months. Oh, no. So when you're taking that $300 per month, you're putting it in that 121 months. I'm going to round down a month just to make the math a little bit easier. Say that's 120 months. You just took a 30-year mortgage and you paid it off in 20 years. 10 years just got snipped off the end, if that makes sense. So you're done in 20 years. You took 120 months, rounding down, took it off the end of it. So now you're paid off in 20 years instead of 30. Because you're paid off in 20 years, you just saved $111,461 in interest. Well, cool. Here's a question. What if you put $300 a month into an investment instead of overpaying your mortgage? Then what happens? Well, the question is, all right, let's put $300 a month into an investment vehicle, and at the end of 20 years, when the mortgage would have been paid off, how much money do we have sitting around? Because it should be at least $111,000. And that is where we would go back to the TVM calculator. Present value 0. Payments, we're going to, we'll do this monthly. We'll do it properly. So you can put negative 300 as the monthly. We don't know what the annual rate is going to be. We're trying to figure that out. But the future value is we want to get at least $111,461. I'm just going to round up to dollars here. So in 20, and then period is 20. I'm sorry, period is not 20. Period, we're at 20 years, we're doing this monthly, so it's 240. 240, and annually should be set to monthly on the drop down for compounding.
Annual rate,
And we're trying to compute an annual rate. What's your break-even rate? So negative 300 is your monthly payment. In 20 years, which is times 12, 240. 240 is your periods. Your future value should be $111,000. If you compute rate, you have to get at least 4.11% on a compounding investment to break even with overpaying a 6% loan.
And that's just breaking even.
That's breaking even. So if you can get better than a 4% rate of return, keep in mind taxes, because if you're investing money in a brokerage account and you got to pay taxes on the capital gains, if you get 5%, but you're losing a 20% of it to taxes, well, now your 5% became a 4%. So there's some nuance to this. But you really, if you can get a better than 4% rate of return, technically it makes more sense to invest that $300 than pay off the mortgage. There's another consideration here, which is when you pay off the mortgage, that's equivalent to a 4%. Basically, it's equivalent to basically getting 4% compounding to pay off a 6% loan. The reason why you're like, well, why is it 4 and 6? Well, 6% is on a decreasing cost of debt. 4% is compounding math. It's different acting math. So if you can get better than a 4% rate of return, it makes sense to invest it instead of spending down the mortgage. But you got to consider risk. If you're paying down a mortgage, that's a guaranteed outcome. Versus over here, if you're investing your money in anything risky, you're not guaranteed to get 4% necessarily. Even right now, you can buy a CD paying 4%. You can lock that up for the next 3 years. Well, then what are CD rates going to do in 3 years from now when you got to roll the CD over? I'm like, who knows? Maybe you'll get 5%. Maybe you'll get 2%. Nobody knows. So the question is, if you think you can get 6% and get a better outcome, go for it, but with the understanding that you're taking on a lot more risk with trying to pursue a 6% return as opposed to a guaranteed 4% equivalent. You're locking in basically a guaranteed 4% to overpay a 6% mortgage. Does that make sense to everybody?
There is one more thing.
Yeah.
I think it's easy for the younger ones among us to underestimate how wonderful it is to not have a mortgage and to realize that you finally own your house free and clear aside from property taxes. And you don't have that hanging over your head because that entire mortgage continues to hang over your head. If you get foreclosed upon, they don't absolutely have to give you back they will only with difficulty give you back the residual value of your home over and above the mortgage. So you're really hanging it out there, especially if you're mid-payment. So if you've been paying on it for 10 years, 15 years, and you think you have a lot of equity, that equity means that you sell it without being under the pressure of, I'm going to get foreclosed upon. If your house is paid off, then your rate of savings can go way up, and your lifestyle, if you want, can go way up, or just keep on saving because you've got your retirement. So regardless, to not have a mortgage, when I finally paid off our house in 2012, I was just like, hallelujah, Lord, and it stayed that way until we finally sold the place.
Another consideration to this also is there are certain things that that compute into this. So, for example, this is another Dave Ramsey problem. Overpay your house. Pay off your house and then start saving into your 401k. It's like, well, okay, but if you're saving into your 401k at 6% for a 3% match, which a lot of employers will do, you put in 6% of your income. The employer is going to match it with 3% of your income. That's a 50% guaranteed return in year one. And if you really look at that, it's like that's a guaranteed return on saving into compounding growth. You're getting a 50% guaranteed return year one. I tend to tell people, just as a rule of thumb, I'm okay if you want to overpay your mortgage, but get your full company match at your 401k first, and then start overpaying your mortgage. Because overpaying the mortgage is probably not going to keep up with getting free money from your employer. The caveat to that would be is there's a vesting schedule, and you're not even going to be vested on the employer contributions for the first 5 years, and you're not planning to be there for 5 years. Like, well, then overpay the mortgage. So nuances to all this. All right. We're going to go to question number 11. And for that, we're going to go to our next calculator, last and final, is this nice little handy-dandy purple one here. Down here near the bottom, it should say IRR NPV calculator. It's a nice little purple calculator with a green symbol. So IRR stands for internal rate of return. NPV stands for net present value. What this calculator, and you should get something that shows up like that, what this calculator is amazing at is figuring out what your return rate is for something with uneven cash flows. So where the TVM calculator is really good is where you're like, hey, I want to save $6,000 per year. What do I get at the end of it? It's like, all right, cool, that's easy. Well, what happens if you get like you save $5,000, and then you save $3,000, and then you save $8,000, and then you save nothing, and then you, right? Like, well, then what is it? Well, the TVM calculator technically can do that, but you have to go like each year by year, and discount it to present value and basically accumulate present value off of all the varying years. And it's a pain in the rear end. What this is really good at is taking into account those values. So you'll see here a number of fields. We'll skip over discount rate for now. We'll come back to it. Cash flow 0. This is really good for thinking through, so IRR NPV is really good for thinking through investment opportunities. Let's say you want to buy a work truck. What does that work truck get you in terms of revenue, and what does it cost you? That's what we're going to analyze. So the money that you are sinking into an investment, you don't have to put a negative value. You can keep it positive this whole way through. But the money that you are sinking into the investment to get it up and running, that is cash flow 0. Everything that gets produced from there on out, or expenses that are incurred, are cash flows years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. So by default here, so let's go to question number 11. You want to buy a work truck for your fledgling business. You can buy a decent used truck for $20,000. Like, great, I already know what my first input is going to be. I'm going to go to cash flow 0, and I'm going to put in $20,000. And I did lie. That doesn't need to be negative. I'm sorry, Josiah. I apologize. That's my bad. You do use negative numbers. You're sending money off to an investment. I don't know why I said that. So negative $20,000, that's your cash flow 0. All right, let's keep reading. You figure it will run for about 5 years before you upgrade to something else and sell it for $15,000 at the beginning of year 6. It will cost about $2,000 per year to operate and maintain. You estimate you can bring in about $10,000 in additional annual revenue by not operating out of your crappy Ford Fiesta for the next 5 years. Okay, so for every year here, we've got, it'll run for about 5 years. Okay, we've got years, cash flow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lined up in front of us, but we need a 6th row because that's the year we're going to sell the truck at the beginning of year 6. So we're going to hit add row in the middle at the beginning. Now we get a year 6 added in there. Every year, we're going to bring in $10,000 in additional revenue. You're like, great, we're going to put $10,000. That's what we made in additional revenue. It's like, well, hold on, hold your horses. That's money coming in. There's also money going out. And that is, you are spending about $2,000 a year to operate and maintain it. So yeah, you're bringing in 10, but you're spending 2. 8,000 positive value is the correct number, because that's what you're actually bringing in net of expenses, is $8,000. Yep, and it's going to be the same for cash flow 2, 3, 4, and 5, $8,000.
Spending $2,000 for maintenance.
Oh, so I do a minus.
You do 8.
And then cash flow 6,
I get it.
well, 5 years have gone by. It's going to last 5 years, at which point we're figuring on upgrading it to something else, but we can sell that truck for $15,000. So $15,000 is the positive value in year 6. And then you can hit calculate, and it will tell you, hey, to take a $20,000 investment and get $8,000 a year for 5 years and then $15,000 in the 6th year, you should get an internal rate of return of 35.5%. Good luck finding that in the stock market. It's probably going to be in something stupid like Bitcoin.
So you do 8,000 for each year?
8,000 for each year, because you're bringing in 10, and it's costing you 2 to maintain that truck.
Good question.
Yeah.
On the 6th year, you're selling it for $15,000, but
Yep.
you do not make $8,000 already with it too?
No, you didn't, because I said you sell it at the beginning of the year. Yep. So it's just the $15,000. January 1st, you sell the thing, you get $15,000. That's your final cash flow in.
The 6th year?
You should get 35.5%. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the question is, what's your NPV? What's your net present value? You should see right here a net present value of $35,000. Well, the reason it's telling you $35,000 is because you put in 20 and you got out $55,000 over the course of the whole time period. Is that right? Yep, 55 grand. And so 55 grand minus the 20 that you put in, it's worth $35,000. Well, now hold on. Time value of money. What else could you be doing with that 20 grand? Well, I'll tell you what else you could be doing with that 20 grand. You could go put it in your 401k and earn a nice solid 7%. Like, okay, well, let's discount this by 7% because we could go somewhere else and get 7% rate of return. So we're going to put 7% in the discount rate. Now hit calculate. You'll notice the IRR doesn't change. You're still getting a 35% return on this, but your net present value is actually $22,796. So what this says is, this is how much profit are you making for the effort of doing this thing. So you could take that 20 grand and just like stick it in the stock market with your financial advisor and let him invest in it. You don't got to think about it at all. Versus this could be maybe, a truck is maybe a bad example. Well, let's say you want to do like a rental house. Hey, I'm going to buy a rental house and I'm going to cash flow out and I'm going to account for maintenance costs and, vacancy costs and all these things and mowing the lawns, right? And I get a net present value back calculated to me. It's like, well, if I could go get a free and easy 7%, how much money net of that 7% is this worth to me? Is it worth $22,800 to deal with the hassle of getting in bed with this investment? Because if you're like, all the work it's going to take to do this investment, is that worth 23 grand to you? And if the answer is no, then don't do the investment. If you're like, yeah, totally make that kind of money, great, make the investment. The 7% is your easy peasy breezy way to make money.
So your 7% is your 7% is essentially your hurdle rate.
Yeah. Right. So if you put in, if you're like, hey, any investment that I do has to make at least 35%. You put 35% into the discount rate, calculate. Well, you're still getting 35.5%, but now your net present value is $200.
How do you add, I don't have discount rate on here.
Discount rate at the very top.
What's cash flow corporations already?
My brain breath is gone, so.
I need to go to the bathroom.
I do have to get that direction.
So everybody write this number down, 35.56%. This is for question number 11. Your IRR, assuming a 7% discount rate, your IRR is 35.5%, and your net present value, the value of doing this net of what you could get free and easy somewhere else, is $22,796. That's what you're getting above and beyond your hurdle rate of 7%, right? Let's go to the next question. This is where the NPV calculator really shines, is comparing two different options. Like, well, here's one option. How do I compare this against something else that might have different cash flows and different inputs and outputs at the beginning and the end? So, all right, question number 12. The decent used truck is fine, or hear me out. You could buy a brand spanking new truck with a Hemi. Its tote's going to look super sick.
Come on, man.
All the other contractors are going to be jelly to the max. You figure you'll spend about $65,000 on it since you really want the spinning rims and lifted LED lit suspension. You only have $20,000 for a down payment, though. So instead of that $20,000 just buying a used truck, you got to go out for a loan for the other the $45,000 that you're going to have to do a loan on, and you'll do a 60-month loan on that $45,000 for about a 6% interest rate. The normal cost of operating and maintaining the truck will be a little bit more. It's $3,000 a year instead of $2,000 a year, but you think because it looks so awesome, you could bring in $20,000 of additional revenue over the Ford Fiesta instead of $10,000 of revenue for the mediocre truck. Because so many people see your truck driving by and it looks so shiny and new, they're like, that's the guy I want to hire, not the guy with the ratty dumb truck, and maybe it's got some nice features and an auto lift gate or whatever. So you're going to bring in an additional $10,000 a year of revenue for having the nicer truck as opposed to the okay truck, all right? And extra benefit, in 5 years, you can sell it for $40,000 instead of for $15,000 in year 6. What is the IRR of this investment, assuming a 7% discount rate? What's the NPV? Does anybody care to guess which option is going to be better, the old truck or the new truck with these assumptions?
I know what Oleg would say.
The new truck. 0.58%.
So there's a couple of things we got to do here, and this is where real world examples get complicated. You've got a loan for $45,000. So one of the things you're going to have to do is go out of the IRR calculator, go to the loan calculator, say, hey, I got to take out a $45,000 loan. I've got to pay 6% interest rate on that loan. I'm going to pay it off for 5 years, 60 months. I'm not going to make any additional payments to principal. We're just going to do the loan. And I have to do a monthly payment of $869.98. Yes?
Say that number
Tracking with
again.
me?
I thought
$45,000 car loan at 6% over the course of 5 years, you're doing a monthly payment of $869.98.
Now, where did you get that? I thought you were making 20.
Loan calculator.
Going to the loan calculator.
Right.
So we went to a different calculator.
Yep, you went back to the loan calculator.
You still got that, knock that off your 20,000 that you're baking every month,
Right,
plus
plus the maintenance costs. So the annual payment for that car loan, the calculator tells you, hey, $10,000, $439.76. $10,439, that's the annual amount of money that you are going to be spending to service that car loan for 5 years. Great, we've got that number. Let's go back to our IRR NPV. We're also spending $3,000 a year for just normal cost of maintenance. So our total annual maintenance costs, $13,439.76. Everybody tracking with me? Okay. So cash flow zero is, you might be tempted to put $65,000, but you'd be wrong because you're not out of pocket for the full 65. You're out of pocket for the 20 that you're bringing to the table for the car loan. It's negative 20,000. That's money that you're away. The rest of that money into the truck gets cash flowed out through the loan every year, which is costing you $10,000 a year in costs. So now, negative $20,000, that's your down payment. That's what you've put into this thing. You're bringing in $20,000 of additional revenue, but that $20,000 is reduced by $13,439 every year. Yep, I heard the number over here. $6,560.24. So out of that $20,000 that you're bringing in additional revenue, you're only bringing in net of expenses $65.60 and 24 cents every year for the first 5 years. 65.60, 24. 65.60, 24. 65.60, 24. 65.60, 24. And then you got to add a row because you're going to sell this thing in year 6, and you're going to sell it for an overwhelming $40,000. And you're going to hit calculate. What you should get, if my math is right, and I'm a professional, is a 37% internal rate of return with a net present value of $52,000. That's not right. Oh, sorry, net present value is wrong because I didn't put 7% in my required rate of return. So 7% discount rate. I'm getting a 37% internal rate of return for a net present value of $33,000. So I can make 33 grand on the new truck, or I can make 22 grand on the old truck. Well, sometimes those numbers are a little deceiving because we're dealing with a much more expensive purchase, so that's where the internal rate of return can be really helpful. Well, I'm not getting a 35.5% rate of return, I'm getting a 37% return. So now you got to gauge, okay, I'm getting a slightly higher rate of return, 37% instead of 35% by buying the nice new truck. Is that additional return rate worth it for the risk of the fact that I'm taking on $10,000 a year of car payments, and I'm on the hook for those car payments.
You realize that your maintenance not be so much the first 2 years because you're under warranty?
Your insurance coverage is going to be higher too.
What about, there's tax advantages to consider as well, right?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not going to calculate that.
Yeah, no,
But so anyway, the whole point of this is to say if you're looking at, I've only got so many dollars to work with, I could make this investment or I could make this investment. How do I choose? Like, well, you can schedule out how you think each of those will go, cash flow it year by year. What are you going to bring in? What are you going to spend? If you're looking at rental properties, when is it going to need a new roof? It's going to need it. It's going to need a new roof in 5 years. Great. What are you going to spend in 5 years? You know, a new roof costs $10,000 now, but it's probably going to cost $12,000 in 5 years. All right, well, in year 5, put in negative $12,000 to offset, right? Cash flow out your options, run it and see what your internal rate of return is.
Dear Lord, please let me be hit with
I really need a new roof, Lord. If you just get a hailstorm this week.
All right. It is almost 9:00. There is a question 13 in here which I will pass on. It is the hardest question, and it has to do with the equation here, the present value of a growing annuity. I'll let this be homework. If anybody wants to come up to me at church and kind of compare answers, what they get, this is the equation that you're going to be using, and I've got the steps to calculate the answer. But essentially, the other thing that the NPV calculator does not do, so the NPV calculator is really good, like, hey, I'm going to save $6,000 a year. This is really good for like cash flows are going to go up and down, what happens. This equation you can do by hand, and what's really cool about this is it calculates things like, okay, I'm going to save a certain percentage of my income every year into my retirement savings, but my income is going to go up at a certain percentage, and I'm going to have a certain investment growth rate. So if I save 10% of my income and my income goes up by 4% every year, and every dollar that I save is going to start to get a 7% rate of return, when I retire in 40 years, how much money am I going to have? And the answer is not what you're going to get out of a TVM calculator, because the TVM calculator is going to say like, oh, you're saving $6,000 a year. It's like, yeah, saving $6,000 a year in year 1, and then I'm going to save $6,500, and then I'm going to save $7,000, and then because my income's going up. So this equation accounts for that, and that is question number 7 is a doozy, and I don't want to fry Matt's brain anymore because he's got to give a sermon on Sunday. But there are a number of steps here. There's 4 major steps to getting the answer, and I'm happy to, message me on Facebook or talk to me at church, and we can,
Are you doing this again next week?
Yeah, but I was going to talk about other stuff.
Okay.
I could cover it next week if we want to. This is more like hardcore, like really get an answer on your future kind of math, and it's pretty neat. But yeah.
I'm hoping my Topps baseball cards from the 1990s are going to make me a money.
Cash them in now.
You put a lot of work into this. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
great.
Really good stuff.
Take this off, I guess.
And I probably did put that on wrong.
See if this does it. All right.